If someone had told me 5 years ago that I'd end up in a rundown motel, alone, pregnant, and on the run, I would have laughed in their face. My life wasn't perfect, but it wasn't a damn movie script either. Yet here I was, clutching my stomach, feeling my daughter's tiny kicks, knowing that just a few months ago, I almost made the biggest mistake of my life. It all started when I was drowning. Financially, emotionally, in every way you could imagine. I was living paycheck to paycheck, scraping by on whatever gig I could get. My credit cards were maxed out, my student loans had spiraled out of control, and rent was a constant battle. I was exhausted. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I lost my job. I was desperate. So when I saw an online ad for a full-time live-in nanny position for a wealthy family, it felt like a lifeline. The pay was ridiculous, more than I'd ever made. It almost seemed too good to be true, and maybe that should have been my first red flag. When I arrived at their house for the interview, I was stunned. It wasn't just big, it was absurdly luxurious. Marble floors, art that probably cost more than my entire life's earnings, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. The place didn't even feel lived in. It was like stepping into a carefully curated world, one I definitely didn't belong in. Nathan and Olivia Carter were just as polished as their home. Olivia looked like she had stepped out of a fashion magazine. Flawless makeup, a perfectly pressed designer dress, not a single hair out of place. Nathan was equally intimidating, the kind of man who made you feel like he was assessing your worth with every glance. They were polite, but distant. And yet, they offered me the job immediately. No follow-ups, no second interviews. Just like that, I was hired. For a while, everything was fine. They wanted me to start before the baby arrived so I could get familiar with their lifestyle. It was easy money, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't constantly checking my bank balance, wondering if I could afford groceries. Then, one night, everything changed. We were having dinner, a formal setup with too many forks, plates that probably cost more than my rent. I was still figuring out how to exist in their world when Olivia casually dropped a bombshell on me. She wanted me to have their baby, not just carry it, have it. At first, I thought I had misheard her. Maybe I had too much wine. But then Nathan slid an envelope toward me, and when I opened it, my heart nearly stopped. The number staring back at me was life-changing. Enough to erase my debt overnight. Enough to start completely over. And that's how they got me. At the time, I convinced myself it was just a transaction, a business deal. I wasn't planning on having kids, and they were offering me a way out, a way to finally breathe. So I said yes. At first, I felt relieved. I moved into a private apartment they had arranged for me, started medical checkups, and everything seemed smooth. But slowly, things shifted. Olivia, who had been polite and distant, became obsessed. She monitored everything, what I ate, when I slept, how much weight I was gaining. Every detail was scrutinized. She would show up unannounced at my appointments, demand updates from my doctors, and constantly remind me that I was carrying their future. Nathan was different. He was cold, more calculated. He didn't micromanage me like Olivia did, but I could feel the pressure in every conversation, every interaction. It was like they were just waiting for me to mess up. And then, the 7-month mark hit. We went in for an ultrasound, and I remember feeling this weird mix of excitement and dread. I had been trying not to think of the baby as mine, but the truth was, I felt connected. I felt her. When the doctor announced, "It's a girl," my chest tightened, not with disappointment, but with something deeper. I turned to Nathan and Olivia, expecting some kind of reaction. Instead, they froze. Their excitement disappeared. Olivia's lips pressed into a thin line, and Nathan's jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. The car ride home was silent, uncomfortable. I knew something was wrong. That night, Olivia was different. She barely spoke. Just sat in the dimly lit living room, slowly swirling a glass of wine, staring at nothing. And then, without looking at me, she said something that chilled me to my core. "We can end this, Jessica." At first, I didn't get it. But then she kept talking, kept suggesting things, alternative options, other solutions. That's when I realized what she really meant. They didn't just want a baby, they wanted the right baby. And if it wasn't what they expected, it was disposable. I wanted to be sick, I wanted to scream. But more than anything, I wanted to get out. I didn't wait. That night, I packed whatever I could fit in a small bag and left. I ditched my phone, my credit cards, anything that could be tracked. I took a bus to nowhere, checked into the cheapest motel I could find, and prayed they wouldn't come looking for me. Now I'm here, alone, pregnant, hiding. My daughter kicks, and every time she moves, I feel this overwhelming wave of emotion. Relief, fear, love, because she's mine, not theirs, mine. Maybe they're still looking for me. Maybe they've already given up. But none of that matters anymore. Because some things aren't for sale. And I finally understand. Freedom doesn't come from money. It comes from choosing yourself.